So we have some brand new reporting we're scooping right here on NBC News about what went wrong in Iowa and why 100% of those caucus results still are not in. Here's the deal. We're learning more about why the phone lines used to report results were flooded Monday night. It wasn't just caucus organizers. The Iowa Democratic Party tells us there were also a bunch of Trump supporters apparently calling in, jamming things up with at times some hostile calls. So where might those supporters have gotten the idea or even the number itself? NBC is first to report this, apparently from one of the most extreme far-right message boards on the internet, one we've talked about a lot on this show called 4chan. We're also learning the app used to submit results was not fully tested beforehand and the rollout may have been rushed. Let's get into this with NBC News senior business reporter Ben Popkin, who is here, along with NBC's Ben Collins. Both of our Bens, thank you for being with us. And Ben Collins, I'm going to start with you because you are just out literally in the last 15 minutes breaking this over on NBCnews.com. There's reporting that Trump supporters on these 4chan sites were told to clog the lines, basically. What's up?
Yeah, so there was these posts that came out at like 10 o'clock, roughly, on Monday night that said, here's a phone number, clog the lines. Just stay on these lines. And it was
the number. It was the number for the people who were supposed to be calling in to report caucus results.
That's exactly right. And here's the deal. Like, it's easy to blame 4chan for this, but 4chan is going to 4chan, right? They left a door. This is like a saloon door of bad cybersecurity. Just like it was wide open. So people kept calling this number, and at least that's what they claim on 4chan. But now we have evidence from the party itself that said, look, you know, Trump supporters were calling, people were calling and just hanging up. These resembled like prank calls, basically. We're not sure if the idea started on 4chan, but it was definitely there on Monday night. There are posts to prove it, and we've backed it up with a lot of reporting.
We should note that the Trump campaign is denying affiliation with anybody clogging phone lines on Monday night. We don't know anything about this, but perhaps a spokesperson says Democrats should consider using an app that works, saying it's laughable. They would try to blame the Trump campaign for their own incompetence. You make the point, though, and I think you said 4chan is going to 4chan. Saying that 4chan is going to try to mess with something big on election night, right, is like saying the ocean is wet and you can swim in it. Like, what is your sense of the way that parties should be prepared for this or should have been in this instance?
Oh, my God, everything went wrong. This is not there are several different ways this went wrong. They sent out an app that no one knew how to use, and even if they knew how to use it, it didn't appear to work. And then people were left calling a phone line that, you know, was available on Google. So bad actors took that phone line and put it on a site with bad actors willing to do bad actor stuff. So this at every level was an OPSEC nightmare. That's what you'd call it in this field. It's a really bad operational security situation. And look, there are ways to game plan this. There are ways to stop this sort of thing from happening, but they didn't do it. They just, like, the Democratic Party straight up did not do this. 4chan has been doing this sort of thing. Like, so what they used to do on debate nights is rig like online polls that were vulnerable to this sort of thing, to make it look like their preferred candidate won whatever debate. And this happens in both the Democratic and Republican Party. So this is not a new idea for them. It's just a sort of like a new tactic.
You talk about all the things that happen, these underlying factors, and Ben Popkin, you're talking about what happened with the app itself, right? And you have some new reporting on that. Tell us about it.
Well, it's incredible that after all the cybersecurity concerns and concerns about Russian interference and the threat of hacking, that the app has actually been leaked. We were able to get a copy of the app from one of the Iowa precinct managers and actually download it. I actually have a copy of it on this phone here, downloaded here in New York. And we sent it to analysts who found that the coding was rushed, that there was some design and technical considerations that were problematic, and yet still this app was rushed into use. The biggest issue is while the core functionality of the very kind of simple basic app looked to be okay, there was an coding issue on the back end, how that data was being transferred to the Iowa Democratic Party servers. That's the key issue. The other thing that we saw, because we got the copies of the email chain sent from the developers Shadow Inc. and the Iowa Democratic Party to these precinct chairs, giving them multiple layers of information, complicated instructions, asking a lot of the precinct chairs to do on their phones, on their Apple phones and their Android phones, and it just looks like a rush job and just poor deployment. And you can't forget that for all the consideration about cybersecurity issues, election is a lot more than just cybersecurity. We're talking about real people on the ground being asked to change settings on their phone, go into their phone and change it to allow these outside apps that the phone was telling them was not safe. You got to do that groundwork to train people in advance, and people are telling us that there just was not enough training.
Ben Popkin, Ben Collins, that is a 1-2 punch of some fascinating reporting as to what's gone down this week. Thank you for being on the show to break that down with us, debuting it right here on MSNBC. Appreciate it. Thank you for checking out our YouTube channel. Why don't you subscribe? It's really easy. Just click on that button down there. And for more news from MSNBC, click on any of these videos here for the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more videos from MSNBC with our newsletters. Head over to msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up.